Hello, I'm Katie Harrison, and this is Stepmum Space, the judgment-free zone where we'll talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmum life. So whether you've been a stepmum for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmum in your life a little bit better, this is the place for you. My guest today is Emily. Emily is a stepmum to 4 kids, yes 4, and underwent a painful period of infertility and then IVF treatment. Fertility issues are really close to my heart, and I really wanted to talk about stepmum infertility on the show, which can be particularly painful. So I'm really grateful to Emily for getting in touch and for bravely sharing her story. Hi Emily, thank you for joining me today.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Enjoying the sunshine.
Oh, it's about time, isn't it? It's been rotten.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of England. You never really know what you're going to get.
Bit like step parenting.
That is very true.
So, Emily, tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, so I've got 4 stepchildren. There's 2 different exes.
You're brave.
I know. So there's 2 younger girls and 2 older boys from 2 different mothers, and I have a really different relationship with all of them. So the younger 2 are 4 and 6, and the older 2 are 15 and 18. In the beginning, it was really overwhelming, and I didn't cope well with anything. And looking back, I can see all the mistakes that I was making. But as a new stepmom, I was doing what I thought was the right thing to do, because you obviously, when you become a stepmom or you meet a man with children, I know everyone doesn't kind of like to class themselves as a stepmom, because there's kind of like that stereotypical character of a stepmom is, someone who's really involved. I remember my dad saying that to me, like, well, you're not, because you're not involved in the way of like being their mum. So I think even from the outside, and I think clearly this is why there's so much pressure when you meet a man with children, is people think, a stepmom is X and that is it. But I found that because of their ages and because of the situation and the way that my husband was, me taking a more of a backseat role. By the situation, I mean, both the mums, I thought it was just easier for me, just kind of be more like a friend than anything else. Obviously, I was always there if they needed anything. But I learned kind of earlier on that my place wasn't going to be that kind of stereotypical stepmotherly role. I was better off in the background, maybe disengaging, is the word someone use, or kind of like nacho step parenting people use as well.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase. Do you want to explain sort of what that is for those people who might not have heard of it?
So basically, it's just taking the mindset that they're not your kids, so you don't have to act like they're your kids. So you can say no to things that maybe you don't want to get involved in, or if maybe what you're doing in the family situation isn't helping, it's better to take a back seat, or maybe, not giving your thoughts about how the kids are raised. So basically letting the parent, the biological father and the biological mum raise them as they see fit, rather than trying to kind of interfere or raise them as you think you should. So it's really kind of taking that backseat role, and the most important relationship really being you and your partner, and kind of supporting him in how he chooses to raise them. So it can be difficult, because obviously even when you have like just the mum and dad, you're going to have different parenting styles, but it is really challenging when you have kids who are staying over or visiting, or whatever the situation is, and you don't have a say in their manners or other things outside of your home, etc. It takes a lot of really trying, learning how to managing your thoughts and managing what you say and managing how you act, and trying not to kind of like let yourself get triggered by things.
So theoretically, it sounds like a really great idea to like step back, leave the parenting to the biological parents. But like, if these are kids who are in your house and you're not comfortable with the behavior, that's really hard.
Yeah. And also as well, like I sometimes speak to stepmoms about this, and it's really difficult if you're like a 50-50 stepmom or a full-time stepmom, because how do you disengage when you have the children most of the time? Or maybe you're partner works long hours, and you say you have to do like the school runs or the dinner or the bedtime or the bath, etc., it is difficult to take a step back when you have to parent, that you're not the parent as well. I guess it would just take a lot of communication with your partner.
It's quite a tricky balance, I guess, because I know sort of in the past when I was really struggling with a lot of things and I tried to step back a little bit, and I hadn't heard of what natchoing was. So that was like a new concept. But I just remember thinking, just step back. But then I sort of got accused of not caring.
Yeah, that's it. There's such, this is so true. There's such a fine balance. And it's that saying, isn't it? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Because if you do step back, like what I have done, like for my own sanity, and actually what I thought was in my stepchildren's best interests at this point in time, because things may change in the future, probably from the outside it looks like I don't care, but actually I felt my presence was causing too much more drama, because I didn't want the other mum or one of the other mums to think that I was trying to be a mum. So I kind of felt that it was better that, because even though the situation isn't perfect, I still have respect for her as the kid's mum. So I just felt kind of my presence was better not in the situation rather than causing problems.
So when you first got together with your partner, obviously he had 2 really young kids from a relationship, and then 2 early teens, I guess.
Yeah, kind of pre-teen and teen at the time.
And you mentioned that there was, they each sort of pair, if I can call them that, has a different mother. How did that work practically for a start? Were the 2 kind of sets of kids close, or how? Just talk us through how on earth you managed this as sort of somebody who was also new into relationship as well.
It was challenging, not only that, it wasn't just like there was one set, 2 different sets and 2 different mums as well. So they've been brought up completely differently. On a practical level, I just find it like I found the cooking meals really overwhelming, because I was cooking for different ages. One of the kids is vegetarian, so obviously in the beginning I was trying to be really perfect at it. I always think of the time, I'm laughing now, when I tried to cook this like vegetarian lasagna, and it took like hours and hours, and it still wasn't done because I'd done so many layers. And I think then my husband just like made the kids eat it. This is like just the 2 oldest ones. I look back now and I just think like, it was one of those just like really awkward moments of they must have just thought this is absolutely disgusting. And then
and there's you like slaving away in the kitchen, more like Cinderella than a wicked stepmom.
That's so true. And I remember as well, I tried to like cook just for one stepchild, I think it was, and my husband, I tried to cook this like chicken curry thing, and it was disgusting. And I remember him like hating it. And I was like, I think I cried afterwards. I obviously, when you look back and you're like 5 years ahead of it, you can see how I would never cry now if they didn't like my food. At the time, it was like the end of the world and really, really hurtful.
I remember having cooked kind of spaghetti bolognese for 30 years of my life, but suddenly I changed the whole way I cooked it just to try and make it sort of perfect for my stepchildren, like exactly how they wanted it. And so you mentioned that the 2 sets of stepchildren were coming sort of at the same weekends, I guess, when you first got together, and then that changed. So can you share a little bit about sort of how that worked over time?
Yeah, so, with 2 of them, it was much easier because the mum was really encouraging of the relationship. And,
And was that the older 2 or the younger 2?
Yeah, the older 2. So, even now I feel that my relationship with her is, we're not friends, but we'll always be, nice to each other, and she's accepting of me. So that was much easier. This is the thing, I don't have anything against the other mum, and, I would never say a bad word about her, because the youngest 2, they're lovely, lovely kids, and she is raising them really well, but she's made it quite clear that she doesn't want me in their life. So I've had to respect that. So something I was taught was take the lead from the ex on the relationship that she wants from you. So if she doesn't want anything to do with you, like, instead of trying to push that, is actually just to maybe accept that, and maybe in the future things might change. Because at the end of the day, this may anger some stepmoms, but they are her biological children and they're not my children. So I respect that they are her children, and you know, she was pregnant with them, she's given birth to them, she's gone through all the really difficult parts of being a mum. And so I do understand why she wouldn't want someone else to be a part of their life, because she looks after them the majority of the time. So I totally respect that. But obviously that's made my relationship with them much more challenging.
And it's quite hard because I was really interested when you were talking about taking the lead from the ex.
Yeah.
And actually that makes a lot of sense. But it's difficult if she wants something different to what the children want or need. And if those children were obviously very young when they came into your world, they're going to need stuff. You're going to need to be more sort of hands-on with a younger child than you might with an older child.
Yeah. And this is what was difficult, because I felt like I couldn't do that because of different situations. I felt that it wouldn't go down well with certain things. Looking after them in the way that, you know, a 2-year-old needs looking after is not what I wanted. I would have loved to have had more of a relationship with them, but I know that it's not maybe coming from them so much. I just think I have to respect that. I've done a lot of kind of work on myself in that area, that actually the more we kind of pushed things, the worse it got. And you know, for us, there has to be I think, you know, there has to be a point when you just say, I can't keep putting myself through this pain like every week or whatever, where if you feel you've kind of done all you've done, like where you're, you know, rejected or not spoken to. I think when I do see them, you know, I always try my best, but I don't expect anything from them, because I know that they're in a difficult situation as well. Like they may be being told things about me. I always think there's a different view, isn't there, in every step family? How I view myself is not how the exes view me, is not how the stepchildren view me. And just because I think a situation should be a certain way doesn't mean that it should be that way as well. So obviously the situation, my younger stepkids, is not what I want it to be, but at the moment that's what it has to be.
And are you seeing them at all at the moment?
At the moment, my husband still sees them like once every other week. Whether things will change as they get older and you can kind of talk to them and reason with them, I don't know.
Yeah. So it's obviously a shame that you're not seeing the two younger ones, but like kind of with a lot of stepmums that I talk to who don't have as regular contact with their stepchildren, it normally comes after a huge prolonged period of stress and lots of difficult situations. And sometimes for your well-being and their well-being, a break is quite helpful.
Yeah. And my husband still sees them, and I don't want to be the one that stops them seeing their dad. If I was seeing them every other week too, and then they were like, you know, because he doesn't get a lot of time with them, you know, that time is precious for him. So it's almost like I don't want to ruin that as well for him at the moment.
Yeah. And presumably your oldest stepchildren, 15 and 18 now, are sort of living their own lives, I guess. But do you see them as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So, you know, not so much the eldest, but the second eldest. Yeah. So yeah, he's here a lot. Well, like every week and then every other weekend. But that relationship is really normal. Like he's just a normal teenager.
So Emily, you are at the point where you've got this kind of dual relationship, I guess, with both sets of stepchildren.
Yeah.
And then you guys decided that you wanted to have your own baby.
Yeah. So I've always wanted a big family. So maybe you should be like careful what you wish for. But I always saw me having like 3 children of my own, and, you know, having children quite young. We tried and it didn't work for us. So for me, it was definitely the most difficult part of being a stepmom, because I really wanted my own children. To be with a man who has children and, you know, struggling to have your own, it's so painful to go through. I wouldn't, you know, wish that on anyone. Anytime it was the time of the month, I'd have like the biggest meltdown and just literally didn't want to leave my room, and it really made the relationship with my husband difficult at times. And, you know, I was very like resentful and jealous, obviously, and my self-worth took a real battering, because I thought that I was being punished or there was something wrong with me. You know, gosh. I really thought that, you know, that I just thought I must it must be my fault, I must have done something wrong. What used to go through my head as well is actually, maybe I'm not meant to be a mum, maybe I'm just meant to be a stepmom, and that's why I've met a man with children. And I remember my hairdresser at the time saying something along those lines as well, and I just thought, bloody hell, don't say that. So yeah, that was it. I just really thought that, maybe I wasn't meant to have children, because obviously I really wanted children, and I really tried to come to terms with the fact maybe that I wouldn't be able to have children, but for me that just wasn't an option.
I totally get that. For me, as early as I can remember, one of my dreams was to be a mum and have my own children. Yeah. And I can't speak for sort of full-time stepmums or other stepmums. Maybe
everyone's different, of course, and
everyone's different, and I'm sure there are stepmums listening who do, and I know from speaking to stepmums that there are stepmums who very, very much feel like a mum already. Of course, so I do understand that longing to grow your own baby and have your own biological child, because I 100% had it. During that time, obviously you're trying for a baby, month goes by, it doesn't happen, month goes by, it doesn't happen. You mentioned you sort of felt resentful. How did that show up?
I just wasn't my best self. I was probably withdrawn. I might have maybe said things I didn't mean towards my husband, blaming him, and even though it wasn't his fault, I would really struggle when my stepchildren were there. I didn't feel like a mum myself. I felt like on the outside a lot of the time, and because at that point in time, obviously, when you're going through infertility, there's no guarantee you're going to have a child, whether you go down a natural route or you have fertility treatments. So I was kind of really trying as well come to terms, or try and imagine my life being a stepmom, or being married to a man with children, and not being a mum myself. And I just didn't think I would be happy, and I know that's it's really, I just wanted to be honest, because I don't want to kind of sugarcoat it, because I know there's kind of stepmums going through infertility and they're having all these feelings and emotions. But for me, I don't know if I could have stayed with my husband if we didn't have a child of our own. We both say it probably would have split us up in the end. Infertility can split a couple up even when you don't have other children involved. So for me, it was that make or break really for us.
And when you talked about those moments where you were sort of trying to come to terms with the fact that you might not have biological children, and you were sort of thinking, maybe this is what the universe has planned, I'm going to be a stepmom. Did you find it easier to build a relationship with your stepchildren, or did you find it quite hard in those moments?
I found it really difficult, obviously, through no fault of their own, but them all being younger at that time and them all being like really nice kids, I was just jealous of the mums, really, that they had children and that I didn't. I did find it difficult because I didn't feel that, and I know I'm not speaking for lots of stepmums, but I just want to be honest how I felt. I didn't feel that I would ever compare to their mums. I just thought like their mum is their mum, and I didn't think that my relationship or I would ever be like as important to them, or I just kind of went through all those times when I thought, when they get married or have children of their own, like I'm not going to have a look in those kind of things. And I just felt like there might be loads of situations where I just always feel second best, but that is really how I was feeling.
I can understand that. I can really understand that.
Their mums are going to be, the important one. I might not even be at their weddings or be involved in certain things in the future. You just don't really know what can happen in a step family. But all those things were kind of going through my head as well. Like, oh my goodness, I'm just going to kind of be the outsider forever.
And how long were you guys trying for before you decided to go down the kind of fertility treatment route?
It was maybe 18 months to 2 years. We kind of went to a couple of different IVF clinics before we settled on the one that we used. It was that case, like so many, women going through it, you kind of think, I'll just wait another month, and then another month, and then another month is like 6 months, and then it's another year. Time goes by so quickly. And I just got to that point where I just couldn't kind of put myself through it anymore.
In terms of the natural trying?
Yeah. It was just every month. It was, it was horrible. I just, it was, you kind of wait in for that that time when you can test, and then you you come on, and then you just have to start again, and it's just a horrible cycle to be in, and it's completely takes over your life. I remember looking back, I saw a friend this week, and I remember like she was arranging something for her birthday once, like wild water rafting or something adventurous, and it was like 6 months in the future, and I said, I don't want to sign up for it because I really hope I'm going to be pregnant by then. But obviously I wasn't at that point. But I think I must have missed out on so much stuff because everything was revolving around trying to get pregnant.
Yeah, and the way that sort of society pictures it is like couple fall in love, couple decide they want a baby, couple get pregnant.
But actually, there's so much more to life than just having children. They're the biggest blessing ever. But also definitely in our day and age, there's, careers or, traveling now, and so many different things we can do. Like, I don't think a woman's role is just to get pregnant and have children and be a mum. But I think when you don't have it, it makes it like you really, really want it, because you always want what you can't have, don't you? And like the absence of it makes it worse. But now having a child, I realised that I'm not just a mum anyway. There's so much more to me than just being a mum.
So you had your IVF treatment eventually, and it worked. You had your baby. I mean, I can't even say that without like a massive smile on my face, because babies are always special. But when you know somebody who's been on kind of such the journey to get there, it does feel even more special. How did your stepchildren take to the news that there was going to be a sibling?
To be honest, they were all, my older two guessed because I had horrendous sickness throughout the pregnancy. But, they were actually really excited, which is really, really lovely. My older two stepkids have been nothing but amazing, in all honesty. I haven't had to worry about anything there. They're really brilliant with him and really help me out. And if I ever need help when I'm having a shower or anything like that, in ways it couldn't have gone any better. But then, of course, it is more challenging because I never just had it just me and my husband and having a baby. There was always other people to think about, even down to due date. If it falls on a weekend, the kids are here, or there's other responsibilities, isn't there?
So it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think when we had the same thing of when we were expecting our first baby together, and we both had children from previous marriages, I remember thinking if older children were our biological children, it would be really easy to find somebody to just have them.
Give them to the grandparents or something.
And like nobody would give it a second thought that we'd just kind of ditched our children somewhere else so we could go to the hospital. But it was such a massive like deal, and I won't go into the sort of dramas, but it wasn't that easy. And you sort of think, well, if a woman's having a baby, that needs to be the priority. But I think we're quite rightly really conscious of the impact on the stepchildren, and as we should be. But I think we can take it a little bit far sometimes.
Do you know what? That's so true.
And how are things now with the stepchildren and your little boy?
My eldest stepson loves football, so obviously he's been watching him play football, etc. And kind of he's already like kicking the ball about, even though he can't walk. It's so cute. So my eldest stepson's really looking forward to him playing football with him, because I do think it is quite difficult when there's a big age gap. Babies are under about 9 months. They don't do too much, and they're not too interactive, and that can be quite difficult, I think, for stepchildren, because even though babies are wonderful, like they can be a little bit boring, I think. I'm really hoping that now he's going to be walking and talking soon, that they'll be able to do activities or play football in the garden or do all these different things.
I think that would be amazing. I mean, I certainly look at our little ones and how much they adore their big siblings and how brilliant
they really do,
and I guess the other thing is, like, when there is that age gap, they do have the patience.
My expectations have been exceeded in ways of the older kids. Of course, there's times where, because our little one, is not the best sleeper, and he can be quite loud and sometimes a bit whingy. It is difficult because, again, we're talking about kind of putting that pressure on ourselves. Last night when my elder stepkid stayed here, and my little one's up at like 5:45 in the morning, and I'm giving him breakfast, and then it's like I'm getting like anxious because he's like being noisy, and I don't want to kind of wake other people up, but I can't do a lot about that as well. It's difficult because you don't want to kind of be telling the little one baby to like shut up the whole time because you don't want to bother the older kids. It's like if they were both your kids, it would be a lot easier to manage.
Totally.
But it is more difficult when one's biologically not yours and one it is.
I always felt the worry of, are the stepkids still going to want to come here even if they're getting woken up at ridiculous o'clock?
Yeah, that is it. It's difficult, and I feel guilty about that sometimes. But then I think there's nothing I can do about that. I'm doing my very best. You know, it's not what I want to be woken up at like 3 a.m. either. Not
and also, like, this happens in any family who has more than one child. This is what happens. Yeah. And you know, I remember like literally racing across the landing in the middle of the night so the stepkids wouldn't get woken up by the baby, and thinking like, I obviously would do that if it was my older biological children, but the anxiety is heightened for sure.
Yeah, I do feel that anxiousness often about not wanting to, you know, annoy other people, and kind of that guilt as well.
Yeah. Do you think your relationship with your stepchildren's changed since you became a biological mum?
I think I'm more like patient and understanding. I think I try harder to understand what it's like to be their age. So I think I've tried to understand their point of view more. So it's weird because in ways I feel more patient and understanding, and I've really tried not to let things change for them. But then in other ways, I feel like it has changed because having my biological child and really having that like unconditional love and just being, you know, obsessed with him because of everything we've been through. I think that my stepkids haven't got that from me, where because I didn't know them as a baby, and obviously I'm not their biological mum. In that way, the relationship is different, and I think this is why it's really difficult to be a stepmum, is because you come in at a point where they're halfway through their childhood, they don't need you as much, you know, if they're older, for example. Yeah. And, you know, all these things like the pregnancy, the giving birth, like our birth was quite traumatic, but that bonded me to my little boy, you know, later down the line. And, you know, I'm with him 24/7. I do everything for him, like all the late nights and the feeding, etc. That bonds you to your child. Whereas stepmums, unless they've been there, you know, right since the beginning and they're, you know, really involved or full-time, etc., you don't get those opportunities. I sometimes feel like you're just doing the more practical things. You don't have those kind of really as many deep and intimate moments because you don't have that chance, I don't think.
As much as I do believe that biology isn't what makes you a mother, it is impossible to ignore that there are genetic ties, and there has been research done to show that, you know, those genetic ties are very, very real and very, very strong.
It's so much easier to bond with a child that's there 100% of the time than if they're there once every 2 weeks or once a week. I just think that we kind of sometimes think like, you know, why is this so difficult? But you kind of pick up, don't you, where you left off a week later, and so much might have happened. And
what about the younger children? Do they have a relationship with their new sibling?
Well, they've only seen him like a handful, not even a handful of times, a couple of times. I don't know personally if they want to really have a relationship with him, or whether it's my husband is wary about, you know, merging the two together, or whether it's, you know, people in the background. I don't know, actually. I think I would drive myself mad trying to figure that out because my husband, you know, just says he's protecting me at the moment. I think he just doesn't want any drama. And I think that going from past history, I just don't know if our little ones' presence would be encouraged for them to kind of all be kind and loving at this point in time. And it's difficult. I don't want to put anyone in a position where there's drama or there's problems or there's tears, you know, from, you know, my stepchildren or my biological child or anyone. I just don't want to cause upset. And, you know, people, you know, and then kind of what goes through my head is, well, they're going to have to all have a relationship one day, or you see more of each other one day. But I think when my my child doesn't, you know, he's not talking, so like I don't know how I would even, you know, this worries me all the time, like how when he can talk and understand things, how will I explain the situation to him that he has siblings from two different mums, and one set love him and the other set in the beginning maybe weren't as much of a part of his life, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. That always kind of worries me, but I think at this point in time I'm just kind of reading what the situation is, and I just don't want anyone to kind of get hurt. I don't want there to be like, drama or solicitors or any of that, again.
Yeah. And you know what, like after everything you've been through to get your baby, you really deserve to enjoy your baby. And I think if they're in this situation, it's really clear you want all the right stuff for everybody, but like we talked about at the beginning, there's so much that you're not in control of. So
no, that's it. And you sometimes can't have what you want. Like in an ideal world, I'd love everyone to be really, really happy, and like, you have days at the park or whatever it may be, and everyone's just like loving that we have a child, but that's not always the reality of that. And I've spoken about this, like how you, as a stepmom, you kind of grieve that life that you wish you had. And I think that's the case when you have a child as well, biological child of your own. And it's like having that balance between making everyone happy, keeping everyone included, but not causing drama. I don't like confrontation. And sometimes I think it's better to do nothing than do things that could cause an issue.
And somebody once said to me, you can lay down on the floor for somebody to walk all over you and they'll still complain you're not flat enough.
Yeah, that's so true. Whatever I do will never be the right thing, and I know that.
And that's where you just do what's right by you, your family, your child, and whatever else is out of your control, you have to, as much as you can, try and let it go and enjoy your baby, because it hasn't been easy and you've got him now, and I'm over the moon for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. I know infertility is painful for everybody who has to go through it, but I think for stepmums it is a certain type of pain. I'm really grateful to you for speaking today to me, because I think it will help a lot of people, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that you're not alone, and like all those feelings you're feeling in your head and you're wondering if you're a bad person all those feelings are just really normal.
Yep, as we always say on this show, all the feelings are normal. You're not a bad person, you're not a wicked stepmother, and you are never ever alone. Dealing with fertility problems is so painful, and to be going through that on top of putting a brave face on as a stepmom is unbearable. I know there will be people listening who are in that situation, so sending lots and lots of love to you. Please do reach out to me on the Stepmum Space website if you'd like to connect with others going through the same thing. It's www.stepmumspace.com. Once again, thanks to Emily for getting in touch. And if you've got a story to share, please do reach out to me via Instagram @stepmumspace or on the website. And if you've enjoyed the show, please do rate it and spread the word, as it helps other women find us. See you next time.